Hey everyone, I'm Angela Lynn.
And I'm Jesse Lynn, and welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? This week, we're bringing back a fun subject that has appeared in a few of our episodes previously, which is having kids. Oh, baby, baby. So, as you guys may have heard through our various episodes, Angela and I have very different perspectives on having children and bearing this fruit of legacy.
What a way to describe it.
So I think we wanted to actually devote some time to discussing it and really dig into or rehash what our individual perspectives are on it and kind of just what our overall thoughts are about having children and the potential difficulties, challenges, and rewards that might come from having the kids, the offspring. So do you want to kick it off with your recap of your perspective on if you want to have kids, why, all that?
Yeah. General POV, I think, has changed a lot since I've grown up. Let's say, like, somewhere between 5 to 10 years ago, I was like, I don't like kids. Like, generally don't
Fair.
enjoy children. I think it slightly changed after I moved to New York because I think I've talked about my cousins that are like super religious, so they have like a million kids. Okay, I think they actually have like nine. So obviously
Are you
1 million is
serious?
exaggerating, but yes, I think they have nine, 8 or 9 kids. And when I
The
was yeah, yeah. When I moved to New York was for college, and they're like the sweetest people because, they're super Christian, so, Jesus loving, blah, blah. Anyways, but when I moved there, they only had 2 kids, so I saw it like really explode over the over the time that I lived in New York. I think when I left, they had 5, and then they had like more.
yeah.
And that was the first time I really had to be around children. Like there was a panic moment for me. It was one time I was like hanging out with them, and the wife, so my cousin's the guy, and then the girl is his wife, obviously, that I'm not like blood related to, but I'm like closer relationship wise to her.
Hmm.
But anyway, she and I were like running an errand, and they have this like minivan, obviously, right, to shuttle around all the kids. And she was like, I have to go run inside Target to like grab something, can you just like watch all the kids right now? And I was in the parking garage with, I swear to God, like, yeah, it was like 5 kids. And it was like mayhem because there were a couple that were like strapped to the
The
like
roof
car
of the car.
seats. No, car seats. I had to like hold one, which I'm like the most awkward with holding babies because I'm like, am I holding this thing right? And there were like 1 or 2 that were like big enough to be in the seats by themselves, just like jumping around and like causing mayhem. And I was like, am I gonna survive the like 10 minutes that she has left me here? But I will say, okay, so it was mayhem, but that being around them all the time was the first interaction where I was like, I still feel a little bit of this like meh towards kids, but I can see why they're fun. Like some of the time, right? I was like, oh, they're so like they say like random shit and they just have like the funniest imaginations and whatever. So I think like over time it's like changed. But I would say when I was like early 20s, I was like, oh, I hate kids. Like I have no affinity towards children. And then like as I spent a little bit more time with them and then like also got older, it's just like okay, they're not so bad. And then in terms of like having kids, I think when I was mid or later 20s, I still didn't have like baby fever per se, because we can talk about this later, but Karen, our other best friend, like definitely had a specific baby fever stage, which
Oh my
we can
God.
discuss. But I was like, I don't identify with this feeling. I have like baby dog fever,
Oh,
because
sure. Yeah.
every puppy I see, I need it immediately, but not like human baby fever. Um, but at that time, I thought like, well, I think I should have a kid. And I have like many I think a lot of like external factors that played into that.
Of course.
Part of it's family, part of it's just like being a woman, of like, biological clock ticking, that kind of shit. Legacy with like being Asian or Chinese. You know, there's like a lot of stuff
Yeah.
going on there. But
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm gonna have a kid at some point. But like, I'm not like clawing for it kind of thing. And then now I think being obviously married and whatever, like there's even more factors to play in there. So yeah, we want to have kids, but I would say my POV has like continually evolved over the last 10 years over this subject.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course you would. It's not like, it's not like you're deciding on lunch. You're deciding on like a huge investment of your lifetime, money, and like energy. So yeah, I would imagine that your perspective would change because you're different at different stages of your life.
True.
Yeah.
How about you? How has yours evolved?
I would say different, obviously. I think I had no opinion on children in my early 20s because it wasn't even in my periphery, right? Because as a gay man, like to have children, I think would be very difficult just logistically because you could only like adopt a child or get a surrogate. And both of those are very like expensive, lengthy processes that are like not necessarily guaranteed that you will have a child at the end of the day. So like early to mid 20s, it was not even in my periphery because I was just like, that's just like an impossibility. And then as I got older and, started to make more disposable income, like I like children, but I don't have a particular like bearing towards children. Like I don't have baby fever. I don't see a child and be like, oh, I want that to be my life or my future. And I was just talking to my partner about this yesterday, and I was like, I feel like if I was in a different situation with my life, I would consider it because I think of children as a different kind of challenge and like a way to introduce newness, kind of as you're saying, into your life because they are it's a very different stage of your life versus like what you normally have, which is just like you have career, you have friends, you might travel, and all of that kind of repeats. And it's new, but it's the same, right? Like you have new of the same things. And so I could see a situation potentially where I'm like, okay, you know what? Like I'm really kind of done with doing these things and I'm ready for like a new chapter or new challenge in my life. But of course, like there's still the logistical parts of it. So I just don't think it's really feasible or, in the cards for me at the moment. But like you said, things keep changing and like will change as we get older, so like my perspective will change. But I recently where was I? Oh yeah, I went ice skating and I was in line to pick up the tickets and there was like a toddler crying and I was like, bitch, those are some fake ass crocodile tears because he's going like I'm like, shut that baby up. I don't want to see that. Like, and so I was like, I just don't think I have like the temperament to be a parent. Like, I would need to have like someone who's like a co-parent that's like, okay, Jesse, like you need to like this is a child. You cannot treat the child exactly like an adult. Like to temper. So I don't. Yeah, I'm not at that place yet.
You're funny though because you have like you obviously you have that side of you, but then like when we had Catherine and Mark on and they had to have Valerie, their baby,
Oh, I love
also
Valerie.
kind
She's
of
so
on.
cute.
Yeah, you were obsessed with her.
Because she has such a big personality.
Yeah.
Like most babies are, I don't know, I feel like most babies are pretty boring, but she has such a big personality. I'm like, yes, we're going to be best friends. So yeah, that's why I was like, yo, I'm into this baby.
That's pretty. Well, you could have that kind of baby. Who knows?
That's true. But it's hard. It's not like you can, when I picked up my cat from the ASPCA, I filled out a survey that was like, I like to live like this. My environment is like this. I don't think you get to do that with a baby.
Nope. You get what you get.
Exactly. But it is a pressing thing because our friend groups are like rapidly, either it's diverging. Either everyone's producing babies or people are like in my camp where it's like no babies at all.
Yeah, we definitely have quite different friend groups. I'd say in the last like 3-4 years, my friend groups have started to like pop them out. Catherine and Mark were the first ones of like direct friends that had a baby, but Karen, like I mentioned, our other best friend, has now a 6 or 7 month old baby, It's like baby's first Christmas right now, literally. They're back home. And then I have at least two other like direct friends that are pregnant right now and giving birth early next year. Yeah.
It's happening. Everyone's like, oh, it's that time. Yeah, no, my friend group. It's funny because I have two distinct friend groups. I have a friend group where it's mostly straight couples and maybe like a few singles. And then I have like the gay friend group. So like the gay friend group, nobody is baby nothing. Like there's not even a remote discussion of baby anything. And to set the picture, like these are folks between like maybe like 25 to 35 ish. Let's say like that's the range. And then it's very like the age range is very similar in my straight friend group. But even they aren't really having any conversations about having children. And I don't really know what it is. It might just be like an urban versus suburban kind of thing. Because I also think it's really hard to picture having like a family in the city because there are so many stressors to navigate that maybe you wouldn't experience in a suburb. And it is very expensive to raise a child like in New York City. And I also think that I don't know what the like thinking is for a lot of your friends, but I feel like when I talk to a lot of my friends, like they're definitely more thinking about like far off future considerations for the child. Like they're thinking about whether or not they want to put a child in the world given where the world is moving. And they're kind of like, I don't know if it's like it's a money thing, but they're also kind of like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. Like we don't know if they're gonna have a good future, and it doesn't make sense for us to have a baby right now. So it's like all of those kind of considerations.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the urban versus suburban has some validity, but I think New York is its own bubble
its own
because there's also, even like stepping back, I mean, we talked about it in like the dating and relationships episode, but dating in New York sucks, especially as a straight woman looking for a straight man, because straight men are so Peter Pan syndrome in New York, where they're like, oh, I could be like, I can just age up and I will still always have like young hot things after me. So there's very little incentive to settle, and therefore if you're not settled you wouldn't start a family necessarily. So I see that as like a big New York specific kind of like issue, because it's not like every city is like that, because some of these friends are in cities, but it's not New York. And then I do think, I mean, age range, anyone from like my specific age upwards is kind of like who's giving birth right now. And I think there's so many different reasons. Like, look, I love Catherine and Mark, and I'm not trying to reduce them down to just this, but if you're very religious, that's obviously like a big motivator for having as many children as possible as early as possible, and they're quite Christian, so I think that played a lot into them trying to have kids earlier. And then Karen specifically is the only person I know who had like actual labeled baby fever. That was driving that. And then I think the others honestly kind of waited a little longer than like I personally would have, or that's not fair. We don't know what happens behind the curtain, right? Like what's happening with that process. But I think some of them waited a little longer, and then that also has like its own complications once you wait a little bit longer from a biological standpoint, which we can talk about. But I think some of it was kind of like, it's time, I guess.
Okay. I mean, I think this is a good segue into kind of like why, or in my case, why not to have the kids.
Yeah.
Do you want to share maybe your like top 3 whys?
I mean, it's a long list, man. I don't know if I only have 3. I think
your elevator pitch for kids. Go. You have 30 seconds.
This is not a good pitch. No, because so many of them are pressures from outside people. Like before I had any relationships, right? Like no romantic relationship. When I was like single and I was thinking about like, should I have kids in the future? A big part of it is just a sense of like duty to the family. So like we've talked about this before, but my brother's gay, so I'm the only child left in the family, and it's kind of tricky because technically in like Chinese culture, passing down the last name through bloodline is really important, and technically that only happens through the son, because they don't, when they marry, they don't change their last name. Yeah. Versus I changed my last name, so like technically I'm already kind of like fucking that up. You know, there's like, even if I pass down blood, it's like not exactly as pure as like Chinese legacy will have wanted, because it's not through my brother's side.
Yeah, but I think, you know, given that the firstborn male is not a viable option, it's like kind of like better than that than nothing.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, as soon as he came out, which was a long time ago, like over a decade ago, you know, like maybe 2 decades ago, yeah, that pressure was on for me. It's like, you need to have kids, because you're our only hope for passing down the Lin family bloodline. So that was high pressure in and of itself. The next is, I mean, I think I always knew I wanted to have at least one kid. I just, for me, you know, my perspective has changed over time, especially after we've done like psychedelics and whatnot, right? Like where you like truly learn what love feels like, and like that connection you can have with everything. I think those experiences have helped me understand that like I have a lot of love that I can give, and children is like a natural place to put that love, and like in a really productive manner, right? Like a productive, beneficial place to put the love is towards kids, because it, you know, hopefully you're making a good human who will help other people in the future, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, but back then I think it was more like I will regret not having kids. I think it was a lot of, that was one of the things, is just like, well, if I have a kid, it could be awesome. If I don't have a kid and then I get too old to have kids, will I like be super sad and regretful later on? So like that was a huge pressure as well. And then getting older, I mean, not even that old, I'd say probably when I turned like 20. Oh, I had a mini crisis at like 27, because that's when my mom married my dad, is when she was 27, and then they obviously like started planning out having kids and whatever, and I was like, oh my god, I'm 27, I'm still single, I don't even have a like, you know, I just like, it kind of spiraled, and I was like, oh fuck, am I gonna have kids in time? So then I think 27 is when I started thinking of the biological clock issue, because I was like, before that I was like, I'm so fucking young, like get out of my face, I don't care about this, like I'll deal with this later. But I think that moment was when I was like, oh, I need to start thinking about this, because it's unfair, but like the reality is that as a woman, if you want to have a kid naturally without having potential complications, you need to factor in your age. So that was another. And then I'd say my most recent pressure is just thinking about our parents respectively getting older. It's, my dad has gotten baby fever. I think we've talked about this. So he's the one who has like extreme baby fever. So he like desperately wants grandkids. And he doesn't like say it to my face necessarily, except during my wedding speeches, you know. But I think just, it is really sad, but like forecasting out of like how many years left do we have with our parents before they're gone. It's like, the longer I wait, the longer they won't get to meet their grandkids before they pass. You know, it's really sad stuff, but like there are like so many different factors that play into it that have like come about and evolved again over time. So yeah, lots of things.
Wow, that's super stressful.
Did you ever feel like you had some inkling of like, maybe I do want kids, and like for this reason, or like did you ever feel any pressures of like, if I don't XYZ, that kind of stuff?
You know, like we've talked a lot about it during like our dating and personal life episodes, but to be honest, like my parents haven't really put much pressure on me to any of that. Like I think that they've talked about it, like when I came out to my mom, I think there was like a part of what she had in her head that she never expressed, where she was like, okay, well, that's just not gonna happen anymore. And they didn't really, you know, mention all that. I don't really know why, because it does seem to be such a big issue, and I am like, not big issue, but it's like a big topic, and I am the only child, so like technically it's me or nobody. There's no backup plan. But no, they never really mentioned any of that stuff. And in fact, like my dad doesn't really ask me about my personal life. So my opinions on having children are all my own because I've never been pushed one way or the other. For me, like the reasons why not, I would probably say like they're very similar to my friends' ones, but I've definitely mentioned this before. I think the first thing is it's more of a selfish reason. I don't know if I would be good with a child. And I also don't know if I would ever be in a place in my life where I'm like, I'm so done with, focusing on my own development and like development of my relationships with, my partner and friends and stuff that I would be like, okay, I'm ready to like sink all of my time into this tiny human and like helping them build their lives. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is it's like a huge commitment to make. Like you cannot back out of it.
No.
It's not like owning a pet. It's not even like getting married and getting divorced. Like that's something you could like reasonably back out of and, no harm, no foul necessarily, but you can't back out of having a kid. Like you can't just be like, I don't want this baby anymore. Like,
I mean, you could, but
that's not, I don't think that's like morally unethical to like have the baby and then be like, oh no, I made a mistake. Like, yeah. So like, at least for me it is, and I understand like some people have that situation where like I really thought I wanted it and I want to give it up, but for me I'm like I would prefer to like really be sure that I want this before I bring the baby into the world or adopt the child. And then I'm not really there yet. And then I think the last thing to consider is like I'm also kind of in the camp with my friends where I'm just like thinking about like what the world is going to be like, and not necessarily that the world is going to be like destroyed or anything, but I just think that it's a really complicated place to navigate right now. And I don't feel confident that I could help a person navigate their life. And so I'm like, I don't know if I should have kids, because if I can't, if I'm not sure that I can commit to this child, if I'm not sure I can be the right guardian for them to like help guide them, I don't think I should. Like, I don't think it would be fair. And so those are probably like my, internal reasons. Of course, like I said, that could change, like as you get older, your priorities shift, and I might get to a point where I'm like, I think it is time. Like like I have good relationships and those aren't going to change, and it's time to like focus on, something else, something new. But for right now, it's kind of like that's where my head is at when it comes to children. Of course, I love other people's children. Like I'll take care of other people's children, but I just like for myself, I don't think and I can do that like temporarily. I just don't think that I can do it like 24/7, because I listen to like Karen talk about her children. I listen to other coworkers talking about their children. I'm like, there is no way I'm waking up at 3 a.m. I don't even wake up at 3 a.m. for myself to do anything. Like if I need care for myself, I just be like, I'm gonna sleep through it. So I'm like, a baby, like I don't know.
And it's probably not just once that you're waking up either.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, this just sounds so, I'm already so tired. Like I don't think this
listening to it.
Exactly. I'm like, I just don't think I could.
Well, okay, you mentioned how it's different from having a fur baby. Well, you do have a fur baby.
I do have a
because
fur baby.
I don't know. I was thinking about you and Juniper when you were talking about like you're not sure you have the capacity to like care for a thing. I'm like, you care a lot about Juniper and you have like a sweet relationship with him. What's going on there?
Yeah, I do. But it's different. So like it's the same thing where I'm like, yeah, if you leave your child with me for like, maybe a day, a few days, that's fine. I can do that. But like for like years and years and years, I don't know about that. And Juniper's different. Like Juniper I got when he was like an adult cat. So he already has like some life skills. Like he knows how to poop in a box. He knows how to eat food. He's already independent. Like it's if I like adopted like an adult. So like I just have to make sure he has food, make sure he has water, scoop his poop box, and then just like hang out with him, a few hours every day, and that's cool. But with like a child, that's like a 24/7, like 18-year commitment, at least, which is like much more, I think, aggressive than having an animal.
That's so funny. The way you describe Juniper, he's like your cat roommate that you
he is
poop for.
Yeah, he's my other partner that I live with.
Yes.
But like aside from the fact that he needs food and water and sometimes attention, he's not like particularly dependent on me. He spends most of the day like sleeping, looking out the window, running around, like stuff like that. So he's not like helpless.
Yeah. Well, cats are different. You make a good point that you got him while he was already an adult because Karen, who has the baby now, she also has 2 cats, and I met them when they were kittens. And they were crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
Like I was scared of them, crazy. They like backed me into the corner of a bathroom once. What? I was staying at her apartment once, and I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And because cats are nocturnal, and they were kittens, so they were, wide awake all the time, or just like, 5-minute naps and like would zoom around. I came out of my room, and then they like zoomed towards me. I just saw like eyes glowing in the night, and then they both zoomed towards me, and so I like ran into the bathroom, which is where I was trying to go anyway, and I slammed the door shut, and then I just saw their tiny paws swiping under the door at me, and I was like, oh my god. And they were doing that for like 20 minutes. I was like, I can't get out.
See, like that's why, like I love baby animals. Like I love puppies, I love kittens, but I would never. Like, because it's a much more investment of your time to take care of a baby animal than it is to have an adult animal.
Yeah, and cats versus dogs too are very different because we have been talking about getting a dog for a long time, and we do want to get a dog hopefully before we have kids, because it's kind of like a training ladder, right?
Yeah.
Especially a dog, because they are needier than cats. Like they are so lovable, and there's a varying range of like dumb to smart dogs, obviously by breed and whatnot.
They're all good.
But generally, they need more attention than cats. Yeah, if you get a puppy especially, it is kind of like a baby. Because I have a lot of, outside of human babies, I have a lot of friends who, like, in the last 5 years got animal babies. And a lot of them are dogs, and they got them as puppies. And they're like, I haven't slept in 2 months. Like, because the dog just, like, cries in the middle of the night. And you have to, like, crate train them and stuff so that they learn how to not be so attached to you and all that stuff. And so I was like, you kind of just sound like you have an actual baby. I feel like that will be our the training wheels version first before the human baby.
I mean, like, you do have to spend a lot of, I mean, if you do get a puppy, you have to you do have to like teach the puppy skills. You have to walk the puppy. I mean, you still have to walk a dog. Like, it's a lot of time, much more time than a cat. That's why I got a cat, because it's easier to deal with.
Well, my hope is that the dog becomes well trained and then is like chill by the time the baby comes along, and then is like its protector. All those internet videos. Oh yeah,
the cute baby dog videos. Yes, yeah. I love those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, earlier you already mentioned a few, like, the unspoken reasons why, especially like gay people, may not have kids, and that you mentioned adoption or surrogacy. You want to talk a little bit about that? And do you know any people personally that have like gone through either of those processes?
No. I mean, I follow this hot gay dad Instagram account. They have 2 children. They're very cute, but I don't actually know. Any gay couple that I've seen with children, they're rich. They're like filthy rich. And these guys were like close to the beginning of the pandemic. They're like, bye, we bought a house in London. We'll see you later. And I'm like, you just bought a house in London just like to leave for the pandemic? I'm like, how much money do you have? So I think I was like, who are you? I haven't personally looked into it, but I know it's at least like, for adoption, it's at least $10,000 in like fees, legal shit. And it can be more than that. It's not empirical, but I have a friend, I think she's looking to adopt. She's not gay. She just wants to adopt as a single mother. And she had gone through like months and months and stuff with the state government, and they still were like, we don't have anyone to give you. So she went like a private route to try to find like a private adoption agency. So I think that whole thing, like that whole process is really murky as well, in terms of like how you navigate it, what the players are. But overall, I think it is just like a very expensive thing to do. And I also feel like, just based off of seeing that, it can be a little bit of a heartbreaking thing as well, because you're not necessarily guaranteed that you will be able to adopt whoever they bring in front of you. So you might be going through the motions, and you might become very invested in this baby, toddler, child, whatever, and then they'll be like, actually, someone else adopted them, or like, we can't let you adopt for XYZ reasons. So I think it's a very emotionally like trying process. And then like surrogacy, that's like impossible, I don't know, like it would just be like the idea of buying someone's body to bear your child is such a weird thing for me. I'm like, it just feels so uncomfortable. And like, unless it's somebody in my life that was like, oh, like, yeah, I'll do this for you because you're a close friend, and not for like a financial reason, because it just feels icky to me. Like, it feels icky that you might be paying someone to do that because they don't have any other choice, and like financially they're stuck or something like that. Versus like, if it's a friend, I would be like, okay, like this is less icky because they're not in need, they just want to do it as a friend. But still, like, the whole process is, I feel like it's a huge emotional investment, especially you're trusting someone to carry your baby.
Well, surrogacy is an interesting topic because I think that's the no, sorry, that's not fair. Adoption and surrogacy are both options for straight and gay couples, obviously. But like surrogacy is slightly different when it's straight versus gay couples, because in a straight couple, technically the egg and the sperm are from like, well, I guess it depends. Totally depends, right? Because sometimes it's like the mother just can't bear children for some reason or another, but like the egg is still fine, and then they can't just like plant an egg and the sperm into this other woman, so it's not technically her egg. So then it is like she's literally just, the oven. But other times, you do get like a donation of one or the other thing, versus in gay couples, you obviously have to have the egg donated. But isn't it like kind of like roll the dice whose sperm? I heard there was kind of a like, sometimes you choose, sometimes it's just like you implant both and like see which one.
I thought that it's like advanced now where they can like mix your shit up.
Whoa, what?
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm like, it's. They made a vaccine in like a year. They should be able to make like a sperm,
designer DNA,
sperm. I mean, I really don't know, but yeah, I would also say like definitely between those two things, I would probably adopt. I think adoption is overall cheaper, and there's like less. I think there's maybe like fewer legal complexities, because like if someone's bearing your child, like they could technically, you have to like sign away the baby, basically, and there could still be some complications later on the line versus adoption. Plus, like I'm kind of the same way, where I'd be like, let me like, I don't want like a baby, I want like a toddler to like child age.
I want an 18-year, I want a 17 and a half year old teenager.
No, but like I want someone, I want a child who's like, maybe like 50% potty trained. I can like talk to the child in a semi-normal fashion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Basically, like the child needs to have like the same life skills as Juniper when I adopt him.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Okay, fine. Except jumping like 6 feet in the air.
Him or her, yeah. Except jumping 6 feet in the air.
Well, from my side, not me personally, obviously, but some of the other like unspoken complications with kids that I have witnessed from friends, as friends are starting to have kids and whatnot, is definitely, as I mentioned, the biological clock situation. I think we're in a complicated place in society right now where it's like women's rights, like we deserve, we're the same as men, we get to blah blah blah, like yeah, sure, yes, but I think that's also prolonged the idea of like women should be in the workforce for as long as possible, and like prioritize your career advancement over starting a family because science has developed and you can like freeze your eggs and whatever, right? Yes, true, great that there are options, but runs into complications for many reasons. Like, yeah, you can freeze your eggs, but then you're inherently more likely that you're not gonna be having your child naturally, and you will have to go through in vitro or IVF in order to have the kid, which is where they like replant the egg back in your body essentially, and you have to like take a shit ton of hormones in order to make your body ready for that. It costs a ton of money, and you might lose the baby because many reasons, but like personally know a friend or two that have like lost babies through the IVF process, and it's like it's grueling. It's like not only did you spend all this money and like stab yourself with hormones every day for weeks on end, and then get pregnant, then lose the baby, and then like have to go all over again. And then one of my friends who had a child, she was 35 when she was pregnant, and she was like in the hospital for a checkup, and she was like, guys, they literally are telling me the legal like term for my pregnancy is a geriatric pregnancy because I'm 35. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, there's just like real complications, right? Your like body is just not as prime for housing a baby after a certain age. So then if you do choose the like IVF route or whatnot, like you're going to go through a lot of stuff in order to make that happen. And then I also have friends who are like, there's nothing the doctors can detect that's wrong with either of your like the eggs or sperm, but for some reason you're just not getting pregnant. Like there's just like there's so many things, and it's just like, what can you really do about that? And then for me, something that I've been struggling with is like I'd been on birth control for a really long time, like over 10 years. I started when I was in college, and it wasn't even for sex. It was because my period was like weird. Like it was really irregular, and I had heard that birth control was like a really strong way to like regulate it, and I was like, great, let's do it. And so that's what I was using it for mostly until the last year or so. I finally decided like, I want to like rid my body of like unnecessary chemical dependencies. And I like started getting off the pill, and then I started reading a book about like getting off the pill and kind of like re-regulating your body. And there are so many long-term side effects to taking birth control that no one talks about. And one of them is that it can make you, I mean, infertile is like the worst potential possibility, but it can do that. The other is just like, it just makes your body really difficult to conceive because you've been telling it, you know, you've been feeding it blockers for years and years and years. And it's like, oh, I'm supposed to like be a nurturing environment now again. So yeah, and I'm still struggling with re-regulating my period now after being off the pill for a year. So it's just like, the human body is like so complex, and like so many factors that you can't control. And so I'm just trying to like minimize my risk of, you know, like having more complications later. But yeah, there's so many things. And then, yeah, people don't talk about miscarriages. But as Ali Wong bravely joked about in her stand-up comedy, it's more common than people think. It's just like people don't talk about it. And it's really sad. Again, emotionally, physically, all of that. So
yeah, I think people want to think about it. Like, you don't want to think about all those things, right? You just want to think about, you know, the ideal situation where you have the baby naturally and everything's beautiful and it's like a movie and amazing, and you look like $1,000,000 when you conceive and the baby is like beautiful as it comes out.
Not an alien slimy thing.
Not an alien like turd basically that came out of your body.
That's what they all, can we just agree that's what all babies
all
look
babies
like when
are
they come
ugly.
out?
They're disgusting when they come out. Okay, like how can it not be? It's literally covered in your insides. Like
blood,
so
other
gross.
shit, maybe literal shit. A lot of people poop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't control it. You're just pushing as hard as you can.
So that's what I mean. I just, you know, there's like so many things about the process of having a child, whether naturally or through adoption or through surrogacy, that it's just like a minefield. And let me tell you, I'm not trying to get my life more complicated. I'm trying to simplify my life. Like, and the older I get, the more simplistic I want my life to be, you know? So it's just like all of these new things that you will have to consider and be really honest with yourself about. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, it's like a huge, I don't know.
I get it. Look, I get it.
Yeah. I will say, like, you know, my friend group is not there yet where it's like everyone is having babies, but I wonder what it will feel like when that starts to become the case, where you're like the last person that's like babyless. I don't think that'll ever be the case because, again, like, it's not, I don't think it's that common for gay men to have children, even through adoption. It's not like everyone will eventually do it kind of situation. Yeah. So I always think about what that would be like. But I think I would just like, you know, current me is like, I'm just going to be that like fun Gunkle character on the TV. They like shows up with amazing gifts, and I talk to, you know, the offspring like they're adults, so they like love me, and I'm secretly just drunk the entire time.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see it.
Okay, listeners, so we always like to end on a sweet treat, so we're moving on to the fortune cookie part of the podcast. I think we had two things we wanted to discuss, which is potential names for babies, and also what your dream baby profile would be. Like, what's your ideal baby like? So I will let you take the lead on this one, since my dream situations are very far from being feasible, as I cannot make a baby.
I've never thought about baby names, so I actually don't have these ready at all. All I know is that I will want them to have a Chinese name and an English name. Yeah. So I think that's one thing I thought about when I got married, because I had to fill in, like, they ask you, you know, are one of you going to change your last name? And if so, like, what is it going to be changed to? So I, like, legally I've changed it on the marriage certificate, but I haven't, like, submitted it to Social Security and whatever, so, like, it's not legal anywhere yet. But when I change everything, it's going to become, Lynn's going to become my middle name, and then Ricardo's going to be my last name. So that's how I'm, like, kind of, like, honoring my Chinese name still. But obviously my Chinese name doesn't change. And then when I changed my name, I did think about, like, oh, when we have kids, like, I definitely will still want them to have a Chinese name, and it will obviously be Lynn, you know, like Ling. Yeah. So that way my family still has that carried through. So that's as far as I've, like, thought about names, TBH.
Would you name your child after food or fruit? Apple?
God, no. Dude, no. No inanimate objects. I don't understand any of those names. I just don't.
What about
cardinal directions?
Oh my gosh.
West.
What about like really funny spellings, like Ashley, but like ASHLEIGH. Ashley.
Girl, no. What do you think I'm a white girl? Like, I can't name my kid that kind of thing. No. I don't know. You know what? Actually, but maybe it would make sense at least to have names that are easy to say in both English and Spanish. Like, my name's an example of that. Like, obviously it doesn't sound the same, but like Angela is something that exists in Spanish versus, like, yeah, Ashley, especially EIGH is fucking weird, and no one would understand that.
What about old woman names? Like,
no, yeah, no. It's weird because names, I've, like, vaguely thought about names, not for future children, just, like, maybe when I have friends that are, like, thinking about names, I've, like, thought about it momentarily. And names are weird because they, like, the popularity comes and goes. Yeah. So, like, I definitely wouldn't want a name that's, like, hot for the moment. Like, some people name their babies, like, Khaleesi because Game of Thrones and that kind of stuff. Like, I would not want to name my baby anything like that. But I've also thought, like, old man names, old woman names, like, maybe they'll become hot again, but I doubt it. I don't know. I think for me, thinking back on, like, all the trauma of childhood and whatnot, I'm trying to, like, minimize the amount of trauma I'm forcing onto my child. Having a weird weird old person name is probably not, like, the best for that child with kids. So, kids being mean. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
That makes sense.
How about you? You'll just you'll go with the continued juniper, so it's like oak, like ivy, fir.
Douglas fir maybe. Redwood. I don't know. I didn't name Juniper.
Oh, he was already named?
That was his name.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I didn't know that.
I was like, I don't think he's already like an adult, so I'm like, if I change his name, it'll be confusing. So I just kept it the same.
There's a theory that animals don't actually recognize their names, that they just recognize, like, the tone that their owner says their name in. Mm-hmm. So you could be saying anything, but if you say it in the same tone as the way you usually say his name,
I feel like you have to say his name a specific way, but he does, like, turn around when I say his name. And I think when other people say it, it's a very distinctive name, so I think the intonation's easier to pick up for him. Yeah. But he does, like, turn around when people are like, Juniper. No, I haven't really thought about it. I just I like weird Irish names. Not like those unpronounceable
Cersei?
ones. But, and Cersei could be one. It could
Ronan?
be
Yeah.
Lachlan.
Oh,
It
I
could
like,
be
yeah, okay.
I don't know. I like the way that those sound. But yeah, they're also like very difficult names. So I'm like, I don't know if I would put that on someone. Or I'd be like, I would name them that, but then I would call them like an easy version of it.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then dream baby profile. I mean, again, I haven't thought that hard about this. I want them to be smart, but with social skills,
Okay.
and to be confident and have empathy for people. I don't know. This is just like I don't have like that many things. It's just like be a good human,
Yeah. Generally good things.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I would say I would want a child that will sleep for the most part. I know that they don't sleep. Like, it's very difficult for them to sleep, but yes, sleep. Honestly, this is going to sound really shallow, but I want a really beautiful child because it makes a difference in life to be beautiful. Like it makes a lot of things much easier.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if they can be beautiful, good for them. They're going to have a much easier life.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. And all those things that you mentioned, confidence, social skills, empathy for people, particularly me as I get older. Don't leave me in the home. But actually, it depends. If it's a fun home, yeah, leave me there.
But come visit.
Yeah, come visit sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, lols. Okay, well, interesting topic. Maybe we'll circle back in 10 years.
Oh, God.
On this.
Literally, like, each of us has, like, a baby at this point, and we're like, what do we do?
I can't. Well, listeners, whatever stage of the baby making, baby rearing life you are in right now, write us in with what you thought about this episode, what your perspective was about having kids before or after, if you already have kids now. Or hit us up with your dream baby profile. In our notes, we wrote MASH, but make it baby characteristics. So, hey, draw a MASH. Send it to us. And come back next week. We'll have another fresh episode for you then. And until then, 再见, bitches.